Hello everyone and welcome to this week's techniques video. I promised you a graphite video and that's what we're going to do. So we have a lot of new patrons here over the past 6 months, and some of you that have been here from the very beginning, who have been with me on YouTube and all of that, this will be familiar, but it's never a bad idea to have a refresher. And chances are you've sort of forgotten about it. I haven't seen a lot of it being posted or shared or talked about. And I think it's something that is critical to our work as mark makers and as a part of a creative practice. So this is when we have like dandelion lessons and like intuitive watercolor and things like that that are a more meditative process. So sort of the antithesis of the bluebird that we just did, right? We're using our intuition and we don't have any preconceived ideas about what our project's going to end up looking like, things like that. This practice is sort of the sister to that, but with graphite, okay? You could also use ink. It doesn't have to be graphite. It could be pen and ink, it could be a ballpoint pen. It could be a stick of charcoal, but we are drawing, okay? And I prefer graphite. I use pen and ink sometimes too, but I really love graphite, and so that's what I end up using. And while I have been doing this practice for a very long time, I didn't really know what to call it until I read this book by Frederic Franck. And this book, I read actually 6 of his books, and I have them all. I've talked about them on YouTube videos. You can look it up, my favorite art book. I think it's called My Favorite Art Books on YouTube. But Frederic Franck was hugely influential to me, and once I read one of his books, I couldn't stop and I wanted to read them all. And the thing is they're all very much the same. He's not really saying anything new in between each of these volumes, but it's his message is something that we could hear over and over again, and it would probably never totally make sense, right? So it's a really good thing to read these books again and again, if you are interested in a drawing practice as a meditative practice and as a spiritual practice in a way. So I wanted to remind you of these books, and if you don't have any, this is a great one to start with. It's called Zen Seeing, Zen Drawing, Meditation in Action, Frederic Franck, F-R-A-N-C-K. He also wrote a book called The Zen of Seeing, and that might have been the first one that I read, actually. The Zen of Seeing, it's a bigger book, and it didn't fit that easily here. So what you will notice about, he goes through a lot, and in his talk he writes really beautifully and very clearly about his practice, okay? And he talks a lot about Zen Buddhism and the Tao and how it fits in, not as a religious practice for here, but as how the principles of it fit into a drawing practice, okay? And the book is peppered with his drawings, so his drawings are everywhere, and you'll notice he has a very loose, beautiful style that would be impossible to copy because it's just him and how he is seeing the world, and that's the gift, okay? So when you approach your drawing in this way, we are not trying to make a photographic, realistic copy of something, but we are trying to mark it down as we see it, okay? And that is the gift of how he teaches and what he does. And if you can take his words to heart, it will serve you well in all of your creative practices. So really wonderful books. I wanted to remind you of this. So how it informed me is that it helped me to loosen up a little bit and to be more reactive in the moment and not worry so much about the end result, but just really be present with my subject and make the marks as I see them. And the crazy thing is when you do that and you really relax into it, your results are really beautiful and they're full of truth. So it may not look like a photograph, but it is full of truth. And I tell you what, it's going to have 1,000 times more soul and presence and poetry than a drawing that is made to look exactly like something, like a copy of something else. So while I'm on that subject, that's another kind of drawing, right? When we're making a copy of something else. Or if you have my book, you know, I teach a very realistic style of drawing, but it still relies on our own seeing and not on measuring. And so this practice informs that practice, and that practice informs this practice. They are just different kinds of drawing. This is a more meditative sort of daily practicing that doesn't take very long. Okay? And so I call it now, I didn't know what to call it, I just called it mindful sketching or something like that. But since I read Frederic Franck, I adopted his term, seeing drawing. And I think that term says it all. So one thing that I recommend is that you start collecting a bowl of goodies. I have trays and bowls and stuff all over of things that I have brought home from walks or vacations, or, you know, just things that I brought home. It can be a little piece of seaweed, seashells, acorns, dried roses, you know, sycamore seeds. Everything you can possibly imagine is in here. Little pieces of wood with beautiful lichen from the Adirondacks that's now totally dry. But the interesting thing about this is if I sprayed it with water every day, it would start to green up again. So I think I will do that. Rocks, milkweed pods, walnuts. I mean, anything that catches your eye and that's small that you can bring home and put into your bowl or tray is great, because you have constant sources of inspiration and subjects when you do that. Because remember, this practice is not, we're not trying to create a picture to sell or to frame or anything like that. We're creating a moment where we really spend time noticing and studying an object from the natural world, okay, to really see it clearly. And there are all sorts of benefits to that, and I'll let you imagine them, okay? So this is one of my bowls, and this is something that we found on a walk a couple days ago. And this is an oak gall, and I think it's so beautiful. Look at this teeny little maple seed. See, I mean, just, it can be anything. And you don't want to get anything terribly complicated. This is probably the most complicated thing I have in here, and this would take just a little bit more time. But remember, we're not going for photorealism, okay? So I thought this was absolutely beautiful, and it still actually has a leaf attached to it, an oak leaf attached to it. And once I saw this one, I started noticing them everywhere on the forest floor. They're really beautiful, really beautiful. And this would be super fun to paint as well. The colors are nice, and all the different dimply textures, you could really have fun with that. So I'm going to use this as my subject. So I don't want you to draw this. I want you to go out and start collecting your own little bowl of goodies that you can pick from to do this practice. But I wanted to show you how I go about it, okay? So I also, my pencil box, I'm just going to use a number 2 pencil or an HB pencil. Here it is. And I do not need an eraser. And then I can use my sketchbook or drawing paper, and use good materials. Use beautiful drawing paper. If you get a pad of drawing paper like this, it will last a really long time, because you can use one sheet over and over again until you filled it up for this, okay? This was another one that I did, all right? This was a magnolia seed pod. And then this is a little sketch I did to figure something out because it was close by. So I just need paper, and I want good quality paper, because this is about presence and spirit and really slowing down, and it's about appreciation and respect. So, you know, we don't just want to use a piece of copy paper. So get the best drawing paper that you can, and just keep it, a pad of it just for this reason, or even a sketchbook. It doesn't matter the form. I like this paper, so I just have a pad of it. This is Stonehenge Warm White, okay? So I'll just put my oat gall down on the paper, or I can hold it in my hand. It doesn't matter, okay? Whatever you're more comfortable with. And I want to pick a spot on my paper to begin drawing. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see. Okay. And what I want to do is I just want to notice where my eye goes first, and I just want to begin. Now, Frederic Franck, when he talks about this, he does not like fill in. He has his own specific style, right? But I don't really care about that. I want to do how I want to do. So I'm just following where my eyes go. And again, we're not going for exact realism, but the funny thing is that once we do this, your end result will have just this beautiful truth. And the longer I've done this, the more I let go of my expectations. I used to really try to get, even though I was saying I wasn't, I was trying to get it to be very real. And I've sort of let go of that, because it's not the point, right? And I do like to fill in a little bit of shading. And I go in direction of form. And you know, our lesson on using our pencil like an angel kiss, remember? We want to keep that going, okay? We don't want to lose that. We want to stay with that. I probably won't talk so much, but so you know what? I'm just going to draw. I'm going to put some music on and draw, because I'll just start getting quiet, and then that'll be strange. So I'm just going to put some music on and draw, and then I'll come back. So I just wanted to jump back on here. So for this, you know, I could just do the traditional just big shade, you know, where I'm shading the whole thing in and lifting out the highlights and whatever, but that's not really my point here. My point is to really comb over this and just really look at it as I'm going. And if I do it that way, it's just more organic. And I'll only need to go one pass. So I'm just putting in detail as I go, as I see it, as I feel it's important. It might not be important some places. And I'm still going in direction of form, you know. That's always important to me. So now that I'm looking at this, I wish I would have drawn the other side because it has that lovely hole in it. I didn't do it, so I would draw that side the next time. And hopefully just the way I'm shading here and making these marks is reminding me of the texture. And to be honest with you, what ends up on the paper is not as important as taking the time to see it. I hope that makes sense. So remember, I'm not making a drawing to frame or to give to someone, or this is for my own record, my own moment of spending time appreciating something from the natural world. And learning how to use my pencil to mark down what I see. Now, if you were using pen and ink, this would be very different, right? Your mark making would be very different and it would feel organic to the medium that you're using. If you're using charcoal, it might be very different. You might be smudging with your fingers every now and then or something. And I could do that with this too. I could start to smudge with my fingers a little bit. And then I just want to make sure that in places where I see darkness, that I'm adding that darkness, right? I'm using a pretty light grip on my pencil. I'm not being too tight with it. I'm not holding it down at the bottom. I'm holding it rather loosely. You can see that. It's a little bit darker over here. Not much. And then my little doodad here. There. So I'm pretty happy with this. I do want to make this look like it recedes a little bit here. Unfortunately, you really don't want to use an eraser because I could lift out highlights and it would really make a difference in the texture of this, but I don't want to do that. I want to leave it the way it is. So that is an example, okay, of seeing drawing. So it didn't take me that long. I really got to know this oak gall. I wish I would have done this side. See that cool hole? Which is a very key feature of an oak gall. So I'll do that next time. There's a lot of truth here, right? You can see that. This one I took a little bit more time, but it was the same process. All right, so you just have to judge how much time you want to put into it. The most important thing is to sit down and complete something. All right, notice that I didn't necessarily draw outlines too much, but I was sort of filling in as I go. All right, same with the leaves. I was just sort of making them organically as I went, one thing building off the next thing. Okay, there's a lot of truth here, and the first time you do it, it may not look exactly or anything at all like what you've held in your hand, and that's okay. It doesn't need to. The important thing is that you've taken your time. So what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to take something, you know, like a seashell, and then just start and just be really fast, you know, and not really take time to look at it. I don't want you to do that. I want you to really take your time. I want you to study this shell as you're moving. You're going to be looking at the shell more than you're looking at your paper, okay? You're looking at the shell more than you're looking at the paper, okay? You can glance at your paper because it's right here, but you're really paying mostly attention to this. Hope that makes sense. All right, everybody, so that's your assignment. I want you to start collecting a bowl of things that you can use for these exercises. All right, and I want you to draw a couple on a piece of drawing paper or in your sketchbook, whatever it is that you have, and then share them to the community page. And you can go to the community page if you're on the website, not the app. On the main page at the top, there's 3 choices: overview, posts, and community. And if you click on community, you're able to upload photographs from your computer and share your work. Okay, so I hope you will. And this is just a wonderful practice. It's as important as intuitive watercolor meditation, the dandelion lesson type watercolor. It's just as important to our intuitive process and to our ability to be able to pull from our imagination and mark things down. It is an exercise for that. It's also an exercise in learning to appreciate things in a deeper way. All right? So that is drawing meditation. That is meditation with graphite or pen and ink or charcoal. And Frederic Franck calls it seeing drawing. And that's what we'll call it too. Okay, if you have any questions, please ask. And I look forward to seeing what you create. Take care. Bye-bye.